Distinguished President, Excellencies, and colleagues. My name is Savitri Bisnath. I'm the Senior Director of Global Policy at the Institute on Race, Power, and Political Economy at the New School. It's my honor to speak with you today. Traditionally, policymakers and the general public are taught to think of economic policies, especially macroeconomic policies, as relevant to facilitating economic growth and full employment. In addition to maintaining some level of price stability, we are not encouraged to think of economic policies as relevant for the advancement of women's rights and gender equality, or for that matter, human rights and inclusive sustainable development. What is the purpose of the economy and economic policies? At the Institute on Race, Power, and Political Economy, we note that the role of the economy is in part to facilitate human flourishing. The material realities of women and girls are linked to many sectors and policies, from healthcare, education, and employment to sovereign debt burdens, taxation, and climate change. Economic policies can help ensure that the root causes of and structural barriers to poverty and inequalities as experienced by women and girls are intentionally addressed and redressed for equitable and inclusive economies and societies that center all people and their human rights. There is consensus that the current economic model is failing to deliver economic prosperity for all. For example, it's common knowledge that women are often paid less than men for the same work, and that within countries, women are also discriminated against based on race, age, geographic location, etc. Inequality of opportunities and outcomes are partially influenced by the ways in which specific individuals and communities are positioned by gender, race, ethnicity, income, parents' education, place of birth, occupation, sexual orientation, and gender identity and wealth. They also serve to justify inequalities in property rights, standard of living, access to assets, networks of influence and power, and citizenship status. Economic inequalities are evidenced by the large and persistent disparities that exist in ownership and control of economic wealth, access to resources and markets, and the exercise of political power. Another area where the culture of privilege crystallizes in social relations is the lack of upward mobility across generations. When state parties are obliged to privatize public services, including health and education, there are direct implications for individuals, many of whom are women engaged in care and support. However, current realities informed by the challenges of the pandemic highlight that the public sector plays a crucial role in reducing inequalities. The UN Secretary General pointed to the many challenges facing the world community, including geopolitical and economic fragmentation, with growing inequalities mostly affecting women and girls, the cost of living crisis, and the poorest countries on death row facing insolvency and default, all of which leads down the path of deepening instability. The root and structural causes of economic inequality within and between countries are grounded in global, regional, and national economic and political systems, wherein the communities most left behind experience multiple and persistent, as well as intersecting forms of discrimination, and are often historically marginalized. Asymmetric power relations often influence political and economic processes and lack of remedy for human rights violations. Currently, most low and middle income countries allocate a significant share of their national budgets to debt servicing. Debt payments take revenue away from facilitating the SDGs and promoting the realization of ESG rights, leading to increased poverty and inequalities with severe consequences for women and girls. There is an urgent need for reform of the global debt architecture. The architecture of gender inequality within and between states is propagated in part through economic actors, institutions, rules, and practices. Equality for all requires a more targeted and intentional approach of and to human rights enabling economic policies. According to the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the ideal of free human beings enjoying freedom from fear and want can only be achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy their economic, social, and cultural rights as well as their civil and political rights. Economic policies can and should be aligned with human rights and environmental justice goals. Economic decisions that center people and the planet recognize that assessments of the health and well-being of societies necessarily entails going beyond aggregate growth to include care and support work and the share of workers in the informal sector, inequality of income and wealth, and racial, gender, and regional disparities. Macroeconomic policies, decisions, and actions that enhance human rights will maximize available resources, including through progressive taxation and the curtailing of corruption and illicit financial flows for human rights. An economy grounded in human rights principles and standards would facilitate transparency and accountability, as well as space for social dialogue, scrutiny, and participation. It is essential for increasing trust, cohesion, and inclusion within societies. Thank you.